All right, so I thought I'd go live here today just to touch in on the wisdom that's coming through on this full moon in Virgo. And I've titled this transmission, The Return of Gaia, or one could also say the return of the divine feminine. And of course, we're also in an eclipse, and it's also a blood moon. It's the third of a cycle of 3 blood moons. I believe that dates back about a year. So there's some cycles ending here. And let's dive in, shall we? So let's all just take a nice centering breath into our heart chakra, into the center of our chest. And as you breathe into your heart, you can even close your eyes and just imagine that your heart is shining with beautiful light. And the heart, of course, is this legendary spiritual center, universally known pretty much in every wisdom tradition as the seat of the soul. And that light within us is the light of the soul, which is connected to the innate wisdom of the divine. And at any moment that we feel throttled by life, we feel troubled, we can center in our heart and we can connect to this taproot of wisdom. So just taking another breath into the heart, and let's stay centered in this space. So my name is Darren Austin Hall. I'm going to dive deep in here about the Virgo full moon and some of the things that have been coming up for me. So I just came out of this blessed portal of the Envision Festival in Costa Rica. It's a kind of semi-conscious music, healing arts festival, and it was quite amazing to revel with so many people in the last week here in these blessed lands of Costa Rica. I see festivals as really a place where we get to come together and practice being in community. Of course, there's a lot of hedonism, there's a lot of revelry, but there's also loads of talks and loads of knowledge sharing and learning that goes on. And one of my favorite things about going to this festival in Costa Rica, which is my new home, is I just have so many friends who visit, who come, and it's really a great time for us to check in. And I have a lot of drop-ins with friends to just see how their missions are going, their purpose. And I see these festivals as also a time for us to replenish ourselves. So many of us are in so much service in the world, and we don't take enough time to be in the sacred revelry of it. So it was really nice to be in that, to be immersed in some new musicians. The highlight for me was the music of Mike Love, who I'd never experienced, this beautiful roots reggae artist from Hawaii, I believe, and his music was so poignant. And it was poignant even more so because during this festival, of course, this war has broken out in the Middle East. And I made a post here on Facebook this morning that's been very loved, and I cross-posted it onto Instagram. I'll probably throw it up on my Substack as well. And of course, you know, war is just such an abominable thing, because of course there's always going to be innocents that die in war. It's never precise. It's never just the people who need to be taken out. And this war feels kind of different in the sense that it just feels like there's such a tiredness in our collective. It's kind of like, not again. Are we going to really use this solution of war again to solve our problems? And it is kind of disappointing. And of course, there's a lot of suffering that's happening because of that. I took the ferry yesterday and I was listening to this beautiful ambient album, and I was just shedding some tears thinking about the people that are being lost in this war already, children, innocent civilians on all sides. And just kind of feeling into the madness of it, that war has just been around for so long as this kind of way that we try and problem solve things. And of course, it always begets more violence, more hatred. So that's obviously very much in the air right now on this Virgo full moon. But let's get into the heart of what Virgo is and how we can find some inspiration from this. So to me, whenever I touch in with the energy of Virgo, it's always an opportunity for me to really connect to the divine feminine, because Virgo is a very earth-based sign. Virgo is literally hearkening to the idea of virgin, which means a woman who is whole unto herself, but it really means the divine feminine, the inner priestess within all of us, men and women, and how there is something whole and holy to that. And this harkens back to a lot of the ancient wisdom traditions that I've been just studying so ardently for well over a decade now. And what comes to mind, and I mentioned, or I broached the Taoists in my message this morning on Facebook and social media, because the Taoists, much like a lot of these nature-worshipping, earth-based religions, bring forth this brilliant idea of Wu Wei, which is their central teaching, which means not doing. But when you really go deeper into Wu Wei, it means trusting the flow of the way of nature, which is always moving through us. And this Virgo full moon, and there's an eclipse, and it's a blood moon. And to me, the big energy that's been coming through as I've been contemplating this morning and being in prayer and meditation is that eclipses, and especially this blood moon, it is an opportunity to edit and even end karma. And I feel that the big karmic cycle that wants to end on Earth is to no longer exile the Earth from our sense of our spirituality, to no longer exile the goddess even. Because if you look at a lot of the patriarchal religions that have reigned for the last few millennia, the goddess is not there. She has been exiled. And the Earth has been put in a very kind of distorted light. And we have lost touch with our indigeneity, and hence why a lot of those patriarchal religions have been so antagonistic to indigenous peoples who were so devoted to nature, because they saw many dimensions of holiness in nature. Not only is there the natural laws of the planet, which are there to put in place guardrails for us to be a part of the ecology of the planet, something that we've completely desecrated by living in these industrial civilizations that overtake, that ravage the earth, that don't have reciprocity. And then there's the other dimension, that the earth has always been seen as a living intelligence, as our true teacher of wisdom. And this is something that the Taoists knew, and why they hearkened with this idea of Wu Wei, not to live one's life from simply the filter of our ego, like we know everything, that I can actually figure everything out. It's about having this relationship with the fact that we are woven with nature. We are nature. We are a part of nature. We can never fully separate ourselves of nature, as much as we seem to be trying, and there's a lot of demented pathways that seem to be coming out on the horizon, like transhumanism, where we're attempting to augment our biology with cybernetics, something that, I'm very resistant to and very critical of. But the beauty of a lot of these traditions is this knowing through living, through embodiment, that nature itself has an intelligence that is always there guiding us. And on this Virgo full moon, I really believe it's a time for us to lift this embargo, to lift this wall between us and the earth. And this could be as simple as energetically just bringing in this sentimentality into your world, where whenever you look out into nature, start to really sit with this idea that I'm actually present inside the soul of the mother at all times. I'm living on the planetary body of our great mother, of our universal mother, Mother Earth. So when you look out, as I'm looking out now here in Costa Rica, I have beautiful jungle around me, beautiful trees. I can see the ocean in the distance. And just spend time in contemplation, like feeling that. See if you can feel the mother. This is called animism, feeling the livingness of all things. All these things are sentient as well. They all play a role in the interdependence of this intelligence of Earth. In fact, when we ravage the environment, we kill species of life, which are our family, birds, animals, trees, plants. When we desecrate the waters, we're actually desecrating our own intelligence, because our intelligence is a part of the Earth. So that's why regenerative farming, living in eco-villages where we are actually trying to reweave with the earth in a right, correct way, is one of the most profound things that we can do, so that we can start to really regenerate the intelligence of this planet, which is ourselves as well, so that we become more wise people. A lot of the problems that we're seeing in the world is because we've lost touch with that wisdom. We're going on our own way. And we've forgotten to reflect back and to seek the counsel of nature as well. I wrote poignantly in that post this morning about how the Druids, which I've been reclaiming in my own Celtic heritage in my bloodline in this incarnation, Druids mean the people of the oak, because they would meet in groves of oak trees. And not just because it was beautiful and pristine, but because they would actually seek the counsel of the tree elders before they made any big decisions. I find that quite profound. And you can see that mirrored in the Native Americans, the First Nations peoples of Turtle Island, I was very blessed to do a vision quest myself with the late great Dave Crushane Jr. leading Earthman in Manitoba back in 2012, where a bunch of us were out on the land for 3 days without food and water to receive visions from Mother Earth, to receive teachings from Mother Earth. And I went in quite humbly. I had very low expectations. I had low expectations in the sense that I didn't think I was deserving necessarily to receive visions or anything. I just felt I was going to have a very strong fast. But I had visions that utterly changed my life. And the problem nowadays, I know the irony, I'm speaking on my phone here, is that technology has also created all these walls between us and that contemplative, reflective time. So on this Virgo full moon, I really invite you to spend more time doing nothing, being in the wu wei of Taoism. And while you're just doing nothing, hopefully in nature, in fact, I really invite you to go out in nature and do this, and just see if you can extend your consciousness to the nature around you. Feel into it. What happens when you feel the mother? What happens when you start to live this intention in your life, that you are living in this body of the earth, the planetary mother, and that her intelligence is suffusing us at all times? For me, very profound things happen, and this is a relationship I've been building for over a decade, and it's just welcomed me into so much beauty in my life. In fact, I really feel this as a form of salvation. And it's also coincided with me being able to bring in a lot more wisdom and intelligence in my life as well. For that is truly the intelligence of nature that wants to work with us. So it's about really bringing more online this animistic intelligence. And this is really one of the great zeitgeists of our age, I believe, as well. Something that in the Gnostic mystery schools that were devoted to what they called the Magna Mater, the Great Mother, they would do these initiations where they would, connect to the spiritual body of the earth, and they describe the spiritual body as being a living light that suffused all things in reality. And what they said was profound about that was, for one, it would strike them with a kind of like life-changing awe that would make them feel reborn as children of the earth, as a part of this marvelous, beatific world. But then the light would actually instruct them. It would actually speak to them, which was so incredible. And what this did is it gave a very embodied experience of spirituality. They no longer had to read the books. They no longer had to have blind faith. They were living that faith. They were living that connection to the goddess, to the grand intelligence of the earth. And part of those initiations were not about self-aggrandizement. They weren't about us feeling this glorification of humanity as, wow, we are these divine, superior beings. No, it was about actually creating a porosity, a softness, a permeability in your ego so that you could feel the animistic swells of the living spirit, the Holy Spirit of the goddess, all around us, interfacing with us. And that takes humility to open up those floodgates. And I believe that's also one of the spirits of our time that we are going through right now, is this humbling ourselves. And right now, with the war that's breaking out, I feel we're looking at our madness. I had this very poignant moment when I was on the ferry yesterday coming back through to the Nicoya Peninsula. You take this 75-minute ferry. I was listening to this beautiful ambient music, and I was just staring out at the undulating waves of the great Pacific Ocean. And I really felt it as the mother, as one of the parts of her body, this beautiful oceanic life. And I felt into all the marine life that was under the waves I couldn't see. And I really just sent a hello, a thank you, a connection to the sea family that lives there. And I really felt this poignant moment of just like thinking about war, and, I wrote this little line about like, I've never known a daffodil that created a rocket launcher. And it's true, humans have gone off course in a lot of ways. If you really zoom out and take a sober look at what we've done to the planet, what we continue to do to ourselves and to each other with these crazy wars over land, old ancient bloodlust and vengeance and cycles of hate that have been going on for millennia, there's a certain kind of madness there that you don't see in the natural world. When you spend time in nature, yes, it has its swells of storms and quakes, and of course there is the wildness, the apparent savagery of nature where animals, hunt and prey on each other. But for the most part, nature is just this super calm, there's just this amazing serenity in nature. And it just made me really reflect on how that nature is us. And when you spend time in nature and you feel that peace, you really feel like, wow, there's a whole other world going on here. A whole other world is taking place. And we become so heavily isolated in our human self-interested lives, the human supremacy complex, as I call it, that we've kind of created this sort of madness where we've cut ourselves off from the rest of nature. And that's led us into all kinds of perversions and distortions, like wanting to build weapons and destroy each other and colonize land. I mean, it's just so crazy to colonize land. It's like, it reminds me of those great indigenous sages who would say, like, how can you own land? The land owns us. All of the land is the earth. It's all of ours. It's not to like draw lines upon it and create all these crazy territorial ideas that divide us. And so I really feel on this full moon, on this Virgo full moon, we're really getting a really brazen look at our madness, at our insanity. And it is really hard to look at. And of course we have, still the rumblings of the Epstein files, which is like, I mean, the amount of evil that is being revealed there, is just so gargantuan, and it's impossible to process all of that. So, and this is all happening this year. It feels very much like the Pluto and Aquarius cycle is really taking almost a center stage at this moment, because Pluto is really the planet that like gives you that last sort of moment to change. It's like, okay, I'm just going to make it clear. You've got change or you're just going to die. It's really that like clear what Pluto does in its transformation. And it's really getting to the darkest of the shadows. It's the most far planet. It's the ruler of the underworld. It's really stirring up everything that's been in that underworlding shadow bag, as Robert Bly calls it. We carry this shadow bag where we put all our fragmented parts into it. And now we're opening that up, and it's like horrifying what some of our species have been up to. They've been so distorted. So, I've been talking about the isolation that humanity has gone from, isolating itself from the natural world, and how that's opened us to being cut off from the natural intelligence of nature and really being guided on the way, as the Taoists call it. But then even within our humanity, there's a subset of elites that have like further isolated themselves from our species. And they've sort of like created this little bubble of a world where they're doing all kinds of like morally amoral, horrible crimes against others. And, it really harkens to the fact that we really need to bring back villages and communities to hold each other accountable, but to also heal together and look at some of these old ancient karmic ties that we have. And as I shared near the beginning of this talk, I feel the karmic cycle of letting the mother in, letting nature in to guide us is one of the big karmic cycles. We're ending that wall. We're allowing nature to come back in. And this is something that we need to trust. A lot of the religions have taught us that we cannot trust ourselves, that we cannot trust nature, that the world, the earth, is a fallen world. And I don't think we truly understand how deep a wound that is, psychologically, on a soul level for ourselves. To feel that we can't trust ourselves, that we are originally sinful, to borrow from the Judeo-Christian idea, and to think of the world as this savage world that we can just use for our rapacity, to just exploit it for resources in our own gain, because we have this supremacy complex, and we've been kind of conditioned that we're just going to leave the planet and live in some heavenly height, and this is just a temporary place. But the indigenous know otherwise. That's why they have the teachings of the 7 generations, because they really look at the children. They're like, we're leaving this planet for the ones that come after us. This is our home. We want to tend to it appropriately. We want to take care of it. We want to beautify it. The Gnostics were very clear that humanity plays a very profound role in the beautification, in the empowerment of Gaia, in what they called her correction. And when you start to actually look, and this is another thing that happened to me as I've been like expanding myself into this animistic consciousness, really feeling myself as much as I can throughout the day in my present moment awareness, but then adding this sort of nuance of like feeling myself a part of the earth, you know? So when I'm walking down the street or walking to the ocean or through the jungle, I'm just constantly feeling family around me, looking at the trees, looking at the sky. Oh, it almost makes me want to cry. You know, the beauty that comes from those little gestures, because it starts to interact with you. The earth, you can feel Mother Earth. I remember an indigenous elder saying recently, I heard in a video, that when you sing to the earth and when you pray to the earth, she's so happy, she's so joyful. You know, you can almost feel her warmth. You know, she is alive. She is very much alive. And the more we do this, the more that we open up these channels and we start to lift this embargo. We lift these walls. We start to invite the beautiful wisdom of nature and intelligence in our lives. And it's going to take time. We're really turning, you know, the karmic wheel back the other way. We're stopping this cycle of being cut off from the earth. And we're starting to really reinsert ourselves into the sacred ecology. But another profound thing that came to me, because I'm sure a lot of us have been dealing with a lot of shadow work this year. You know, we have the Neptune and Aries cycle now. And Virgo is also about, you know, refinement, purification. It's about healing. It's about making those little adjustments in our life. So it's a good time to just take a moment today and really consider, like, what is the work that I need to do? You know, what am I really working on? What do I need to heal? And remember, heal comes from the word hal. It's an Anglo-Saxon word that means whole. So healing is really about like defragmenting ourselves, like pulling in those lost parts, usually from our childhood when we were super tender, loving beings. And we were birthed into this world with all these distortions, and there was innocent parts of ourselves that didn't feel safe. So we put it in the shadow bag, we fragmented it. Virgo gives us a beautiful moment to really like take stock, to organize, to find that harmonic structure that is in nature that we see everywhere, and to consider, what do we need to heal? And then one of the most beautiful teachings of, you know, these natural wisdom traditions like Taoism is to truly heal. Again, it's about Wu Wei. It's about doing nothing. When you rest in nature, when you meditate every day, that thing called homeostasis in Western medicine, self-repair, self-organization that happens, to me, that's like such a miracle. That should be like, boom, first chapter of any medical textbook, the miracle of homeostasis, the inner harmonization, the self-healing propensity that happens when we just rest. That is the intelligence of the divine feminine, of Mother Earth, of nature working through us. But I had this really powerful insight as I've been doing my own shadow work. I've been really diving into childhood trauma this year and looking at some of the patterns in my life that I'm really trying to shift. And I had this moment thinking about the Gnostic mysteries and these initiations they would go through, where they would see the living light of the mother and they would realize, wow, we're all living in the soul of the earth. And so much of that is about diminishing our ego so that we don't feel like, oh, this is me and my life. No, we're participating, each of us, in this life together, in the life of this planet, our planetary mother. And I had this incredible reframe that I just invite you to take into your life if you resonate. And when I was thinking about some of the cycles and some of the issues I've been working on, I thought, what if these issues aren't necessarily even mine? What if these are actually part of the earth as well? And of course, they're part of our generational trauma too. But what if the healing that we're being called to do is actually Mother Earth attempting to heal herself from all the distortions that she's gone through? And that just felt incredibly beautiful. And I felt kind of resourced in nature when I had that insight. So consider that for a moment. It helps take off the load too, because sometimes when we do the healing work on ourselves, it can feel so heavy, like this is all just me and my baggage. But what if it's actually, we're healing actually huge distortions in our lineages, in our human species, but maybe even in nature ourselves, because according to the Gnostic mysteries, you know, Sophia has gone through this whole journey where she used to be a star goddess. She plunged into matter to transform into a planet to help support our life. And that created a lot of like her own fragmentation, her own issues that she's been working out. And the Gnostics say that humanity is very supportive in helping her work out these issues so that she can come into greater alignment as well. So I'll leave it there. I just thought I'd tune in with Virgo. So do take some time today to be in nature if you can and feel that divine feminine spirit that is within you, and be whole unto yourself. because we are holy. And when we allow ourselves to just rest and allow that harmonization to take place, it's one of the most beautiful things. And it really feels like salvation to me when you feel like, wow, I am guided in the heart. The goddess is speaking. Nature's always coming back to harmony. Wow, that's incredible. We are already saved so much. Reminds me of one of my favorite quotations that my friend Lorena gave me years ago when I was ranting younger years of my life about all these initiatives to save the planet. And she said, well, what if we let the world, the earth, save us? What if we let the earth save us? Still one of the most profound things I've ever heard. So I'll leave it there. And just for anyone who wants to dive deeper with me in all this wisdom I've been sharing, tomorrow on the Shift Network, I start my 7-week course, Gaia Sound Healing. We're going to be diving super deep into the Gnostic mysteries, the whole mythos of Gaia Sophia, and all the profundity of sound healing, which I really see as Aquarian medicine and a soul medicine to help us come into this purification, this needed alchemization on the level of vibrational intelligence and vibrational essence. So there's still time to sign up. It'll be these next 7 Wednesdays. There are replays, so you don't have to watch it live. It will be broadcast, I believe, at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:30 here in Costa Rica. And you can find that on my profile page on the banner on Facebook if you're going there. You can find the link on my link tree on my website as well. So, sending you all so much love. Let's take a moment to close, just closing the eyes and just feeling that light in the heart, that divine spark of the divine that is our soul. And feel that harmony within the soul, that space within the soul that is untouched from any of the sullying of our lives, the distortions of our world. There is that place within the soul that is just simply that pure land, the pristineness of being. And take a moment to just expand your heart's field and feel the earth, feel Mother Earth. If you're in a city or if you're in nature, just allow your heart's field to just feel, wow, I am living in the body, in the soul of the great Mother Earth. I am her child. We are not alone. We are being breathed by the goddess. That's how profoundly close she is. Her light lives in us. It animates us. All right. Sending you all so much love. Namaste. Awen.